Hello and welcome to another episode of Taylor Talks Comics. Today we're going to go over Volume 1 trade paperback for BRZRKR by Keanu Reeves and Kindt. Alright, so this is the first trade paperback for BRZRKR, and it collects issues 1 through 4. And I wanted to go over this because I've heard a lot of hype for this series. It's been hitting mainstream media, which I'll talk about, but I haven't seen anybody actually review it and talk about it. So I wanted to do that. So obviously, this was a big deal. They originally started on Kickstarter. Now it's being published by Boom. But you have Keanu Reeves and Kindt writing the story of Garney on art. Let me go over the credits here. And then you have Raphael Grompa is doing. It was also in on the character design, and he does the cover. This cover. And then Bill Crabtree does the coloring, and Clem Robbins does the lettering. There's the cool page. So I want to flip through this and talk about it a little bit. But obviously it's got a lot of hype because Keanu Reeves is a big name in the entertainment industry, obviously. And it eventually is going to get... So it was on Kickstarter to start off with, and it's eventually going to get some nice hardcover editions. But this started off as a movie concept. And one thing I do want to say, so the mainstream attention it's getting, this is a Boom comic. This is not Marvel or DC. However, it was on the Today Show. That's where my mother saw it. And she bought this for my birthday, actually, because she saw this comic book being talked about on the Today Show, and she knows I like comics. And she bought it for me, which is awesome. But it's funny to me that a Boom comic was on the Today Show. And... it's great. It's great that Keanu Reeves chose to go through with the story because it's BRZRKR. It's a story concept he had, which I don't know if he's ever said he originally wanted it to be a movie, but it is being licensed already, or being optioned already, I think for Netflix for a movie and TV series, and maybe animated features as well. It's got a big, huge thing going on with Netflix, which is probably to the surprise of nobody that Keanu Reeves would have that kind of pull after the success of this comic book. I don't know if Keanu Reeves said it originally started off as a movie idea or if he purposely wanted it to start off as a comic book. But he reached out to Boom. I don't know how he got connected with them, but they recommended Kindt for the writing. And then they somehow got connected to Garney, Bill Crabtree, and Clem Robbins. But one thing I have to credit Keanu Reeves for it right away is that on the interview with Today's Show, he did credit the letterer and colorist as well as the artist and writer, which you can't get a lot of people to do that within their own industry. You can't get a lot of publishers to do that. So it's cool that, big name like Keanu Reeves, who's always been a great guy. He's always been charitable, and nobody's ever said that he's anything less than a great guy. But it's great to see a Hollywood star be aware enough that where his bread is buttered with this story that he was able to credit all the people. Cool little tidbit. But Kindt originally, so I'm just going to flip through the pages as I talk about this. I know he's been on record as saying that, yes, it was an obvious thing, like, oh, I get to work with Keanu Reeves, how cool. But he wanted to hear the story and meet with him before he committed to the project. Because you'd think there would be no hesitation at all. Like, you'd be like, oh, of course, like, this comic's gonna be huge if Keanu Reeves' name's attached to it. But Kindt being, a tried and true veteran of the comic book industry, who's been, dating back to making mini comics over 20 years ago, hustling on the convention floors trying to make his art, has a deep passion for the comic book industry, and he didn't want to be a part of just some sort of vanity project. This is me speculating, I guess. Matt Kindt can surely comment down below or come on my channel and even talk about it. But I mean, just speculating that he does value that, and he has seen a lot of vanity projects come out like this with celebrities that just can't get their movie options and want to make it into a comic book and kind of be a culture vulture and suck the life out of comic books and use that platform not to elevate comics, but to just elevate their own platform. And I think upon hearing that, I would surmise that, or meeting with him, that Matt Kindt liked what he heard and went along with it. That he enjoyed what was going on with Keanu Reeves' thoughts and things like Keanu Reeves going on today's show and crediting the letterer and the colorist. Those prove to me personally as a comic book fan that he isn't in this to just raise his own platform, that he wants to be a part of this project and raise the platforms of others, which is fantastic and healthy and great for the comic book industry. And that's why I come to the defense of this comic book whenever people are like, why did you have to go through Kickstarter when your name's Keanu Reeves and you are with a publisher? I think them being on Kickstarter, Kindt and Reeves and Clem Robbins and Crabtree and whatnot, and Boom, helped elevate the platform of Kickstarter, maybe get some more eyes on people not realizing that there's a lot of Kickstarters that exist out there for people that are trying to hustle and get their comic books out there. So my point is that I don't think it's just a vanity project. I think that there's good intentions, great intentions even, by both Kindt and Reeves. So that's the first thing I want to say. Next, I want to talk about the story. And first of all, the artwork by Ron Garney, is fantastic. This comic book is not for the faint of heart. It is bloody and violent, as you can see on this image right here alone. And it's action-packed. And I love like the panel, like there's a lot of panels here that reminds, Ron Garney, I feel like, has a lot of Frank Miller vibes going through him as he drew this artwork. And I love that. Like could be stripped right out of Sin City. And then the ultra violence alone is very Sin City, like busting out of the window. That's reminiscent of like Frank Miller, Wolverine. And I'm not saying that these are like swipes or anything. Like I think it's just like that passion. It would shock me if Ron Garney wasn't a fan of Frank Miller, just because there's so much, even like the silhouette here too. It's very Sin City, like the way like the lettering and the gun being right there. I just get a lot of Frank Miller vibes from this. And then when you get to the flashback scenes, this reminds me of Weapon X. I mean, anytime you see a body on a table with a bunch of scientists around him, it reminds me of Barry Windsor Smith, Weapon X. So maybe there's a little bit of that going on too. But there are flashbacks. So this story, like this stuff, when you get into these battles on the ancient battlefields from 80,000 years ago. Let me see. I get a lot of 300 vibes from Frank Miller in there. So the idea is BRZRKR, the main character here, known by the letter B. When we meet him in like present day, and he's doing like this. He's on this like black ops mission for the U.S. government, and then you find out through the unraveling of the story, done in perfect Matt Kindt fashion. Matt Kindt's amazing at writing like kind of a mystery mixed with like espionage type story. I think he's been doing that his whole career and still finds new ways to tell that kind of story, which is fantastic. It's why Matt Kindt's one of my favorite writers. But the story slowly unravels, so you as the reader are finding out new details about what's going on as the characters within the story are. So you see that there's like these ancient times too, where you get a lot of Conan the Barbarian vibes, which are great too. And like I said, a lot of 300 vibes from Frank Miller's 300. But you have this ancient barbarian that's 80,000 years old, and he can't die. And he's lived through, just imagine what he's seen through that time. And you do find out, I don't want to spoil much, but you do find out that his mother basically prayed to the gods for a protector for the city, and then she was pregnant and quickly had a child. That child became the protector of this ancient city, and that's all I want to tell you. I don't want to ruin any more of the mystery for you. I want you to read this yourself because it is fantastic. My only complaint with this trade paperback is that I feel like we've only got the tip of the iceberg here as far as the story. Even ends on a to be continued. If I can find the page here. Lots of variant covers. So even ends on a to be continued page. It ends on a massive cliffhanger. So my only complaint is that I want more of the story, and I think issues 5 and 6 have been released already on the stands. But I think I'm going to hold out for hardcovers. I think I want the oversized hardcovers because Ron Garney's art is so fantastic in the series. Here's a cover gallery with a bunch of variants. You know, Rafael Grampa, that's the cover of the trade paperback. Lee Bermejo, Dan Mora, does a few of them. Ron Garney, Grampa, Dan Mora again, Jeff DeCal. Here's Mirka Andolfo. She's become a pretty big time artist in the industry lately. Christian Ward, J.G. Jones, Razah. Hopefully I'm saying these names correctly. Inyuk Lee, that's a great one too, with all the laser points on it. So yeah, I think I'm gonna hold off on the hardcovers, but you don't often get comics where the writing, like the story concept, the writing, the art, the coloring, and the lettering all like come together. One of my biggest complaints with like mainstream comics is that there's so many cooks in the kitchen. I appreciate the comics that are written and drawn and lettered by the one person, but it can work, and it works in here. Berserker, I give it my vote of confidence. Like I said, my only complaint with this series, it's just fun and action-packed. It's bloody, it's violent, but it also has a great story that's slowly unraveling as we get more to it. My only complaint was that there wasn't enough in this trade paperback of a story that I want more. I want to read this whole entire lineage and unraveling of this mystery in one sitting, and I don't know how long I'm going to have to wait for that. So, fantastic. I highly recommend it. But Berserker by Keanu Reeves and Matt Kindt. Please like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Comment down below if you've read this, what you anticipate the adaptations to be on Netflix. Any other Matt Kindt comics you've enjoyed, or Ron Garney comics. I haven't read a lot of Ron Garney drawn comics, so put those recommendations down below for me as well. But thank you for watching.